This is Eglinton Avenue near the 427. And if it kind of looks like an expressway to you, you're not wrong. This was supposed to have been the Richview Expressway, one of several expressways that never got built. Let's find out more. Starting around the 1940s, the City of Toronto began planning a network of expressways crisscrossing the city. And when Metropolitan Toronto was created in 1953, it continued that work. As so often happens with big infrastructure projects, some of the plans changed and not all of them were built. Let's start by talking about some that were built.
This is the Gardiner Expressway, one of the ones that was built. Well, at least partly. It was originally supposed to be called the Lakeshore Expressway and extend between two provincial highways, meeting the QEW at the Humber River in Etobicoke and the 401 in Scarborough. Construction began at the western end, and in 1997 the province sort of expanded it farther west by downloading the portion of the QEW from the Humber to the 427 onto the city, which made it part of the Gardiner. As for the eastern end, this is what it looks like today, a stub near the Don River. Until a few years ago, this section continued east, above Lakeshore Boulevard, with ramps connecting it to Lakeshore just east of the river. That's shorter than what was originally built, though. Until about a quarter of a century ago, it ended over a kilometer farther east.
And that's why these pillars are here, on Lakeshore Boulevard, a little bit west of Leslie. This is as far east as the Gardiner Expressway used to go. And when the eastern end was demolished, these pillars were retained as a work of public art. Meanwhile, about a quarter of a century after the province downloaded part of the QEW, making it part of the Gardiner, the province is now uploading the Gardiner Expressway, along with our next expressway.
Which is, of course, the Don Valley Parkway, aka Don Valley Parking Lot. The first section opened between Bloor and Eglinton in 1961, although it initially didn't have an interchange at Don Mills. And, true to its nickname, it had its very first traffic jam on its opening day at Eglinton. The remainder, from the Gardiner up to Shepherd Avenue, opened in segments over the next 6 years. Some of it was built on the routes of existing roads, and some was brand new. There was a plan for Metro to extend it up to Metro's northern boundary at Steeles, where it would meet the proposed Highway 404, but the province decided that the 404 should extend all the way south to the 401, so it took over the section of the DVP between the 401 and Shepherd, and the rest will be owned by the province as part of the uploading I already mentioned. We'll come back to one spot on the DVP a bit later, but now let's move along to the other highway that Metro built, but in a form smaller than intended.
I'm on the north side of Spadina Circle, with part of Spadina Avenue behind me. And yes, I am aware that neither one of those is an expressway. Bear with me, it'll make sense in a sec. Alright, so I already mentioned Spadina Circle and Spadina Avenue. There's also Spadina Road, which is the northern extension of Spadina Avenue, north of Bloor, with a little gap near Casa Loma for the former shoreline of Lake Iroquois. I talked about Lake Iroquois in my video about how Toronto's shoreline has changed since the last ice age. There's a magic link up here, and I'll put a link down in the description so you can find it when you've finished watching this video. And then there's the Spadina extension to the Yonge University subway line, which opened in 1978. Only two of its stations, Spadina and DuPont, are actually on Spadina, and barely more than 10% of the line itself follows the course of Spadina before the subway line veers off to the west. So, why is it called Spadina?
Because of this, the Spadina Expressway, as it was originally supposed to be called. It's now known as the Allen Road, and it extends from Eglinton Avenue to a bit north of Wilson Avenue as an expressway, then continues as an arterial road for a couple of kilometers before turning into Dufferin Street. And strangely, it does that at an intersection with a minor cross street, not a major intersection. But there had been much bigger plans, and that's where the Spadina name comes into play. As I mentioned before, these sorts of plans often go through many variations before being built, or not, and the same is true here, but I'll summarize what many of the plans had in common. The Spadina Expressway was supposed to extend both farther north and farther south than what ended up being built. Some plans had it all on the surface, while others buried the part from the south end of its trench at Eglinton to that steep shoreline at Davenport, with the southern portion of the tunnel running beneath Spadina Road. Continuing south of Davenport, it would have replaced Spadina Road down to Bloor, and possibly also Spadina Avenue all the way south to the proposed Lakeshore Expressway that became the Gardiner. At one point, this was just supposed to be an arterial road, but it morphed into an expressway. It was controversial. In those pre-amalgamation days, it would have gone through areas controlled by several different local governments, not all of which wanted it. It was supposed to travel on the surface through the Cedar Vale Ravine, part of the course of the former Castlefrank Brook, which I talked about in my video on Toronto's Lost Rivers. Links in the usual places. Concern for the loss of that green space was a major factor in the idea to tunnel part of the expressway. Some of the funding would have come from the provincial government, which was yet another voice that had different ideas. Ultimately, it was the province that killed it, with Premier Bill Davis making the following statement. If we are building a transportation system to serve the automobile, the Spadina Expressway would be a good place to start. But if we are building a transportation system to serve people, the Spadina Expressway is a good place to stop. And as for the Spadina subway extension, because much or all of it was going to follow the same route as the expressway, including the section we have today in the median and possibly also taking the same tunneled route as the expressway's tunnel between Eglinton and Davenport, the subway extension was named Spadina, just like the expressway. Next, we have a city street that's kind of an expressway, Black Creek Drive. It has few intersections, all of its curves are the sort of gentle bends you find on expressways, and its northbound and southbound lanes are even separated for much of its length. And at its north end, it doesn't have an intersection with the south end of the 400, it just transitions from one to the other, with on and off ramps connecting to Jane Street. This was supposed to have been a highway connecting to the Crosstown Expressway. We'll get to that one shortly. But after the messy end of the Spadina Expressway saga, there was plenty of opposition to this one too, so the province and Metro reached a deal. The province would build its south to Weston Road on the alignment they already owned for the expressway, but with regular intersections rather than highway interchanges, and Metro would continue it south to St. Clair by replacing that stretch of Weston Road with a similar road. But the City of Toronto, which at the time was one of the cities making up Metro, didn't want Metro to replace Weston Road with a sort of expressway. So, as a compromise, Weston Road was just widened to be better able to handle the traffic at the south end of Black Creek Drive. This is the Bayview-Bloor interchange on the Don Valley Parkway. Doesn't it look like it's intended to connect two highways? Well, it might have if the Crosstown Expressway I mentioned earlier had been built. Like so many other expressway plans, there were various proposals for this one, but they generally connected from the intended south end of Black Creek Drive at St. Clair to the DVP, and this interchange would have made a pretty good basis for a full interchange. But as with the other unbuilt expressways, after public opposition killed the Spadina Expressway, the others became unpalatable as well. Not necessarily immediately, plans for some of these kept doing their best zombie impression for decades, but they never got built. And we're back to the Richview Expressway, named for Richview Side Road whose path it swallowed. It was supposed to run from here to Black Creek, where it would have been just a short drive to the Crosstown, which in turn would have connected to other expressways, including Spadina. The ramps connecting Eglinton to the 401-427 interchange were built for the Richview Expressway, which is why they're unlike the typical ramps connecting an arterial road to a highway. And have a look at this map. You can kinda see the right-of-way for the expressway. Most local streets don't intersect with Eglinton. Many neighborhoods have a gap between them and Eglinton, and the things that are built in the gap are kinda add-ons. Expressways need more room than arterial roads, so when the expressway was cancelled and turned into just a street, it left, shall we say, huge tracts of land that have since had infill projects built on them. Another example of this sort of thing is the eastern end of the Scarborough Expressway. We already covered the western end, where the Gardiner used to continue east of the Don River as an elevated highway. The eastern end looks a lot like this, a set of ramps leading to a major arterial road that kinda looks and feels like an expressway, cuts through the area without much in the way of intersections, and is even divided for much of its length. It was originally part of Highway 2, some of which got replaced by the 401. The Scarborough Expressway would have connected there had it been built.
And there you have it, a tour of some of the parts of Toronto that would have had expressways running through them if all of the plans had come to fruition. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe.